So I'm really excited for today. I've been talking with Becky for a while. We had actually wanted to do this very much in person, but we know that's going to be a while before that happens. So in the meantime, we're bringing it to you virtually, and we hope we can possibly do more with Becky in the future, because I feel like OsteoStrong and this Yoga for Bones go together. And I see Kathy. Hey, Kathy, you put us together. I like that you're on. Okay, so for those of you that don't know, we have a couple more virtual talks, and then you've probably been hearing from me that we are reopening, and we'll see you soon. So I'm gonna pass this on to Becky. For those of you that don't know Becky, she is she's been doing this practice of yoga for bones that was developed by Lauren Fishman. And Becky's been teaching this for the past 4 years after training with Lauren, and continues to teach this as a group class at Grateful Yoga in Evanston, as well as offers private sessions in yoga and physical therapy at the Heartwood Center in Evanston. So she will briefly present today like an overview of the poses and explain how this has been good to also improve bone density, which is another reason why I feel like we go hand in hand with OsteoStrong. So go ahead and take it away, Becky.
Thanks so much, Demi. So thank you for being here. Thanks, Demi. And I guess I'd like to jump in and just talk a little bit about why we're here and why we're doing this. I mean, I think you have a pretty good understanding by now of osteoporosis, osteopenia, and that's why you've found OsteoStrong. It's interesting to look at how that translates, though, to our everyday life, and why is this a concern, right? So why is the fact that we have osteopenia or osteoporosis something that we're concerned about? And I think the risk factor of fracture and the correlation between fracture and decreased bone density is so high that we are trying to do everything we can to prevent those things from happening. So there are factors we can't control. There are factors, our age. We know that as age increases, so does our bone density loss. Gender, women suffer more from low bone density than men. Sensory deficits, vision, hearing, our ability to feel through our feet can impact our balance, and those things we have little control over other than working with them the best we can. But there are so many good things we can do. So there are intrinsic things we can do. There are things that we can do to put in our bodies through nutrition, supplements, and there's a whole other area, rich area to explore. And then there's this external component. What can we do to support our bodies? What can we do through exercise, through activity that can have a strong impact on both improving our bone density and on decreasing our risk of falls. So that's where yoga comes in. That's why I'm here with you guys today, because we know that both working on resistance exercise, where we're putting a force against a bone and we're pulling muscle against bone, and also putting the force of gravity on bone, both of those things have a positive influence on bone density. That's proven by Wolff's Law, which I'm sure you're familiar with by now, but bone responds to the force that you put on it. And also balance. So working on balance poses, working with your balance can have a positive impact on your fall risk. And that's where yoga comes in. So this practice, it's a win-win. Unlike other things that you might do to help manage your osteopenia or osteoporosis, other medical management, there are little side effects with yoga other than positive things like improving overall flexibility, improving mood, improving ability to manage stress, as well as improving your balance and improving your bone density. So I think it's a beautiful practice. Lauren Fishman, like Demi mentioned, came up with this 12 pose practice. And they actually did a pilot study where they looked at hundreds of people who'd been doing this practice. They looked at them over a couple of years, and the people who were in this study recorded things about their practice, recorded how many days a week they practiced, how intense their practice was. They looked at all this data, and they found that the people who practiced this yoga series most days out of the week, so more than every other day, and held the poses long amounts of time, so not just going in quickly, but holding at least 12 seconds, which is the very short end of the time frame, up to 72 seconds, at their maximal effort, had positive changes in their bone density. So not only did they were they able to stop the progression, but they actually were able to turn the numbers in the direction back toward normal, right? So making positive directional changes significantly in their bone density, at their spine, and at their hip, and at their pelvis. So the study looked particularly at those three areas, and these poses are targeting those particular parts of the body because those are the places where fracture risk is high. There are other parts of the body, as you're aware, that are also susceptible to fracture risk. That additional yoga asana postures have been, they're coming up with like more poses to look at the effect of those poses on fracture risk in different parts of the body. But the things that I'll share with you today are from this initial 12 pose series. And the important things to know that when you're doing this practice, if you've looked at Lauren's series on YouTube, it's there. And if you're familiar with yoga, you know, the whole thing hopefully is something that you could work through quickly. Like that's their whole idea, is that they could come up with this practice that you can do within 12 minutes every day to get you stronger. If you're not familiar with the practice, it's probably going to take longer just with transitions and getting into it. But you can reference it on YouTube. As we do the practice today, I'd welcome you to either do it along with me if you're familiar with the practice, or you can watch and get a sense. I'd like to show you the difference between doing these poses in a way that you might have done them before, the way that I sometimes teach when I'm doing more of a gentle class and more therapeutic class, and the way that we're trying to do these poses when we do them to strengthen bone, and the way that I teach when I'm teaching the yoga for osteoporosis. The basic tenets of practice, like I mentioned, are we're doing these poses, we're doing mostly standing postures. So we're gravity loaded. We're doing high resistance, so we're really working muscle pull against bone. They're isometric holds, so we're not like adding weight, but we're doing maximal effort, maximal contraction effort, and we're holding them for a long period of time. So today when we do this practice, we won't be able to hold them that long, but so we'll hold them kind of toward the shorter end of the time frame, but it'll give you a feel for what that practice can look like and feel like. So I'd welcome you to try to do things along with me. One other thing that you'll see when you're thinking about yoga for bone health is that we don't do a lot of flexion. So flexion is this rounding of the spine. Flexion is a rounding or kyphotic position in the upper spine. And that's a position that most of us as we age, and honestly, in our youth, often will be in this kyphotic position when we're working on schoolwork, when we're working at our desk. The important thing is that we can reverse it, that we can come out of it, that we can find extension, that we can lengthen the front body and extend the back body, and that we don't do it for prolonged periods of time, so that we don't default into that position, that we're working outside of that position when we do yoga, that we're not coming into a lot of flexion or a loaded flexion, that we're working mostly on extension, on strengthening our upper back, coming out of flexion. So when we do this practice, you'll find that poses for osteoporosis, we're not involving flexion. And I think in general in life, working on
Still at
extension,
work.
maintaining the length in the spine, maintaining the strength in the upper back to help preserve the integrity of the upper spine is a really important thing to be thinking about. If you take some of these tenets into your regular yoga practice, if you have a regular yoga practice, that's one thing that you might take with you, is how can I adapt my practice so that I'm not doing a lot of this flexing and rounding, that I'm maybe doing a forward fold, but I'm not flexing and rounding through my upper trunk. Can I do this forward fold, maintaining some sense of length through our spine? And that's something that I feel like I do a lot of work with one-on-one or in class. We'll talk more about that as we go, but I'd invite you at this point to do a little experiential. So if you are comfortable getting onto the floor, I'm going to ask you to lie on your back on the floor or on a mat. And I'd like for everybody to experience bridge pose, Setu Bandha. So to lie on your back with your feet hip width apart, your shoulder blades tucked under, arms alongside your body. And we'll do bridge twice. The first time I'd like you to do it like you might do it in a normal hatha class, taking a breath in. And when you exhale, pressing into your feet, tucking your tailbone, lifting your hips, lifting your spine away from the earth and pausing. Take 3 or 4 breaths while you're here, feeling the work in your body, feeling the places that are touching the earth, making sure this doesn't feel like strain or stress to the back. And then on your exhale, lowering your hips back to the earth, letting your knees do a little gentle side to side movement, and just seeing what that feels like in your body. And the next time we move into our bridge pose, I'm going to ask you to do it in a little bit stronger way. So see if you can bring all of these different components in, these different cues. So take a breath in, lifting your toes up and pressing into the ball mounts of your feet. Spread your toes and set your toe tips back down on the mat, pressing toes into the earth, sinking into your heels, and really finding contact between your foot and the earth underneath. Take a nice breath in. On your exhale, tilt your tailbone and then lead with your tailbone, lifting your hips and pelvis toward the ceiling. Press strongly into your feet. And then if you're on a yoga mat, hold on to the outside edges of your mat, pull out against the mat, tuck your right shoulder under, then your left. Give a strong pull out against the mat, or if your hands reach underneath, you can interlace fingers under your body. Press strongly into your feet, as if your feet would slide further away from your hips, and that should help you lift your hips a bit higher in the air. Press strongly into your shoulder blades, engaging your upper back. Breathe while you're here and find length and find lift with each breath in. So breathing in, pressing into the back of the head gently. On your exhale, give a little more press into feet. Lift your hips a little bit more. Press strongly into your arms, breathing in. On your exhale, find the length and the strength in your spine. Press your feet strongly into the earth as if you're sinking your feet a foot into the ground. Breathing here, another nice breath in, strong hold, full maximal effort. And on your exhale, release your hands, release your spine, release your hips and pelvis, and then let your body do a little windshield wiper side to side. And just notice in your body the difference in feeling between those two poses, the difference in turning your body on and activating really intentionally, muscle to bone, and we'll take that through the rest of this practice. So from bridge pose, we're going to do a hamstring stretch, and if you have a yoga strap nearby, you can hold it in your hand. If you don't, you can just hold behind your thigh. We'll take that strap around your right foot, shoulders pulling back, leg pulling strong, left leg out long and strong and straight on the mat. Engage both legs and then draw the right leg towards you. So both legs pulling strong and straight. Breathing while you're here and finding the strength and length in your body. Shoulder blades pulling back. Take hold of the yoga strap in your right hand and take your right leg out to the side. Breathe into your inner thigh. Feel the strength and length of the left leg flat on the earth, right leg open to the side. I'm going to move through these in the traditional form of the poses. There are modifications for all of these things to a chair, so that's an option for you as well. Inhale that leg back up and switch sides. Left foot in, right leg long. Take a breath in, engaging the muscle in the front of the left leg. Right leg strong and steady. Back nice and stable. Breathing while you're here, engaging the fronts of both legs. Right arm can come out to the side, breathing in. And with your exhale, let that left leg lower out to the side. Breathing in as you're here and finding length in the inner thigh, strength, and the straight right leg, strength through the core, strength through the pelvis. Breathing as you're here and working the muscles around your middle, around your hips to keep everything strong and steady. Inhale that leg back up to center and release that leg back down to the mat. Take a moment to roll to your side and to press up to standing. So we'll come up to standing. And we'll go through a standing series so that you can get a sense of what these postures look like and might feel like in standing. So you're welcome to do this along with me. Again, these things can all be modified, but we're going to take it into warrior two. So we're going to turn the right leg out. We're going to bring our arms up, take a nice breath in, and when you exhale, we're going to bend into this front knee. So as we're here in warrior two, we're working on strength through the hips to roll hips open. We're resisting hips into external rotation so that hip muscles can pull against bone. We're adding this weight-bearing component to our spine, and we're sending energy out into our arms, into our shoulders. So breathing while you're here and feeling how this might work on your right side. Inhaling, coming through center, turning toes in and then switching sides, taking a breath in, and with your exhale, bending into your left knee. And as you're here, see if you can supercharge this pose. See if you can really resist knees away from one another, thighs rolling open, feeling that work into your hips, feeling the work through your spine, breathing while you're here, and then inhale, straightening that front leg, turning feet back around, and we'll move into side angle. Take a nice breath in, and when you exhale, we're going to bend into this front knee, and for side angle, you can either bring your forearm to this front thigh if you're not familiar with the pose, or the hand to the floor or to a block. This other arm slices through space. And again, in side angle, we're working this long line of length through the side body. We're working strength in the legs and the hips. So we're really working on this external rotation piece in both of our hips, getting a lot of pull against the femur. Work around the middle so that we're working into twist, and that works on the facet joints in the lower spine. Inhale, coming up. Exhale, switching sides, bending into the front knee, fingertips toward the floor, toward a block, or forearm resting on the thigh. And then working here to resist into external rotation at your hips, working into trunk rotation. So working into trunk rotation can help to strengthen the spinal vertebra, the bones in the back. Inhale, pushing toward the ceiling. Exhale, switching sides, coming into triangle pose. So in our standing poses, all of this work on twist and resistance gives us this work on the muscles that attach to the spine and can work to strengthen there. So when we rotate in this yoga practice, bending at our hip and reaching into triangle pose, we're trying to twist off a nice, straight, and long spine so that our twist is true, so that we don't have a lot of rounding or flexion in our spine, that we can get this sense of twist and rotation that can come from our waist, come from the muscles, and not put our spine in a position that might be at risk. We inhale, coming up. Exhale and switch sides. Fold at the left hip. Hand can come down. Press into inner ankle. Other arm reaching up toward the ceiling. And we're thinking of resisting into rotation. So a lot of rotation means muscle pulling against bone at hip, muscle pulling against bone through the spine, through the core muscles, breathing while you're here, and then inhaling, coming up. Beautiful, exhaling, arms down, coming into tree pose. So tree pose, we're gonna balance on one foot. And we have the option with balance of taking the foot low, so foot could come against the inner ankle, inner shin, or come high and press foot into thigh. Hands can come to namaste. When we're in class, we're working often with a chair, so that's always an option. We're working on both hip rotation, because standing on this leg is a strengthening pose for the leg as well as a balance pose. We're working on resisting hips away from each other, getting into the hip muscles, and then loading the spine, breathing while we're here, and then switching sides, shaking legs, and switching sides. So you can bring foot to the lower ankle, the lower shin, or into the upper thigh, pressing foot into thigh, thigh into foot. Again, thinking of this as a balance posture, but also getting the sense that there's some resistance of hip muscle against bone. So the hips are rolling away from each other. And that activation of muscle pulling against bone is what can help. We're adding the load of gravity. So we've got gravity pressing down on our spine. So our spine is getting that load and the strength, and breathe. And then on your exhale, let your cross undo, shake your legs out a little bit. There are two other really specific twists in this practice. And those twists have many modifications. You can do these twists sitting on the floor or do them sitting in a chair. But the idea with the twist is that as you twist in a yoga practice for osteoporosis, we're thinking of sitting up nice and tall and long through the spine. So that's primary. As we twist, we want to twist our spine from a nice straight place. We don't want to twist if our spine is starting to round or to flex. So we think of twisting around our middle, keeping the length through the crown of our head. Sometimes working with a mirror to get a sense of where your body is at in space. If you don't have an instructor, is one way that you might see where your spine is at. And then we'll exhale and switch legs. So what I mean by flexion is we wouldn't want to twist from our spine if our spine was rounded back or we were sitting on our sacrum. We'd want to first be nice and tall. And a lot of that has to do with how flexible we are in our hamstring. We twist around our spine, nice, straight, long, tall spine. Twisting away from our straight leg and breathing. At least 12-second hold. And then on your exhale, we release. Oftentimes I find that there's hip tightness, hamstring tightness, that doing some of these twists is difficult in class. So there are a lot of modifications that we'll do to a chair instead. The second twist, we're doing Matsyendrasana and twisting from this nice tall straight spine, belly toward thigh, either hugging that leg in or taking the upper outer arm to the outside of the thigh and breathing. At least 12-second hold. They've found these twists to be really helpful in building strength through the spine. And then exhale, unwinding the twist, shaking the legs. And then tucking opposite leg in, crossing foot over thigh, wrapping arm around leg, and twisting belly toward thigh. Breathing as you're here, and really cultivating the sense of length through the spine. And then twist belly toward thigh, gazing past the shoulder. Breathing as you're here, at least 12-second hold. And on your exhale, undo your twist. Give your legs a shake. And there's one more standing pose. So for this pose, in class we'll often use a chair or a block. And we're going to do a twisted or revolved triangle. So I'm going to step my right leg back. Belly, pelvis, hips face the same direction where the front foot is and the block is. Left hand on my pelvis, right hand overhead. And then on an exhale, I'm folding into my hip, taking up length through the back of my leg, taking hold of the block or hand on a chair, and then twisting my trunk toward my front leg. Breathing while I'm here. So if I had to round my spine to reach the block, I would lift higher. So I would be higher, hand on a chair. But we twist along a nice straight spine, twisting around the navel, breathing in. And then on an exhale, unwinding the twist, hinging on hips, stepping back foot forward, stepping front foot back, taking a moment, right hand on hip, inhale, left arm overhead, and then exhale, hinging at your right hip, taking up the length in your hamstring, taking a nice breath in, and with your exhale, rotating or revolving your trunk toward your front leg. We want to do this again around a nice straight spine. So we're revolving around a nice straight spine, putting that rotational force on the spine, breathing in while we're here. Nice 12-second hold, and then on your exhale, release. Hinge back up at your hips, step your back foot forward, take a nice breath, and pause. So you'll see, to get this practice done the way that they say in their research that you could, it's pretty quick transitions. We're going to come to the belly, and our final posture, 2 postures on the mat. So Shalambhasana or locust pose, if you'd like to join me for these last 2 poses, to lie on your belly and feel the difference between Shalambhasana, maybe the way it might have been done in the past, where forehead is on the mat, shoulders lift, arms lift, feet float, head floats, and you feel the work in the back of your body. And let your body rest. Forehead to your hands or turning your head to one side. And practicing Shalambhasana, locust pose once again, and seeing if you can supercharge this. So maybe your hands interlace behind your back. Forehead can be on the mat. Tuck the tailbone, press the pubic bone into the mat. Take your shoulder blades back, and then lift your arms toward the ceiling. Let the action of lifting the arms, let the trunk float, chest float, head float. Activate the legs strongly, squeeze the inner thighs, reach out through the feet. Start to let the legs float. Float the knees, float the thighs, and breathe. With each breath, think of cultivating a little more length and a little more height. A little more work in the back body. And this should feel really active. So I think this is the best back strengthening asana. They've done a lot of looking at this pose in research in physical therapy as well. Breathe and hold. Really reaching long and lifting, and on your exhale, Release. Release forehead to hands, or turn your head the opposite way. Take a nice breath in, and then take a moment to turn your body over to lying belly up, and pause in a brief Shavasana. So even if you're sitting watching, maybe let your eyes close for a moment. Let your body feel heavy in your seat or heavy on the earth. Let your breath become soft and your body become heavy. And this is the final posture. Relaxation, allowing everything that you've done to integrate in your body. Breathing in and breathing out. And ideally, we'd stay here for 2 or 3 minutes. But today we're going to take arms and stretch them overhead if you're sitting, or overhead if you're lying. And nice deep breath into your belly. Full expansion here. And on your exhale, let your arms come down. Take time to transition. And I will meet you again in sitting. So I would be more than happy to spend a little time fielding any questions that anyone might have about the practice, about the effects of yoga and osteoporosis. If anyone has any questions for me, I'm happy to answer. I am teaching yoga for osteoporosis virtually online on Mondays at noon, and this is kind of the core practice. When we practice for our full hour practice, we slow things down. We spend longer in the postures. We spend time warming up. We spend time cooling down. We'll add to this, so we'll add supplementary poses that are really great for building hip strength, spine strength, stability in your system, and really connecting you to your bones, connecting you to the earth, really getting grounded, getting stable and strong. But this is kind of the core practice, and just wanted to share so you could see that it is, once you've practiced it, if you are familiar with it, it's something that you can move through fairly quickly so that you can get the practice in every day. If this seemed like it was a stretch, like, well, I'm not a yogi, I've never really practiced before, and I don't know what I'm doing. Lauren Fishman does a nice job breaking it down on YouTube, so you can look at the 12 pose practice, and he gives modifications for those poses. He and Ellen Saltonstall, Yoga for Osteoporosis, which is a fantastic reference. They go through those poses and a lot more in that book. So those, I think, are good places to start. If you have any questions for me, I think Demi's got my contact information that's going out to you guys. So feel free to reach out to me over email. Happy to field anything I can at any point.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hi. Why is yoga for what does the yoga do for osteoporosis? I don't get the technical or whatever approach or whatever we're doing.
Yeah. So are you familiar with Wolff's Law?
No, I'm not. Sorry.
No, that's okay. So one of the things that OsteoStrong also really builds their practice around is Wolff's Law, which is the way bones strengthen. They strengthen in response to load. So bones strengthen in response to weight bearing.
So when you're standing, when you're walking, when you're moving, that's all good for osteoporosis. So the load and weight bearing, we do a lot of standing postures because we know that gravity can help improve bone strength and resistance. So bone responds to resistance. It responds when you strengthen your bicep and your bicep pulls against your lower arm and it pulls against your shoulder. You're strengthening those points of attachment. You're strengthening the places where that muscle attaches. So when you do these yoga poses and we work with, for example, working in Warrior One, so we do a lunge, we work on moving that front knee back. So we're in Warrior Two, we're working on really resisting this knee open. The hip muscle that rotates the hip attaches to the bone and attaches to a place in your hip bone that's often susceptible to fracture if you have osteoporosis. So a lot of these are strengthening around your hips because that's a place that most people, if they have osteoporosis, will have a finding of weakness or decreased bone density. Also the spine. So a lot of poses are around rotating your trunk. When you rotate your trunk, all of the vertebrae in your back are stacked one on top of the other. And when you rotate or you turn your trunk, you're rotating those bones, and the bones, the joints between your bones actually get a little compressive, and bone against bone and rotating bone to bone against bone can strengthen those bones as well. So these are all poses that are designed around strengthening parts of your body specifically, and those parts that are most commonly affected by osteoporosis or decreased bone density. Does that make sense?
That helps a lot, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Anybody else have any questions or?
I will be sending out the Becky's information in the emails that are recap emails that we send out, so you guys can get in contact with her. And just so you know how great she is, she was actually referred by me by like 3 of our members, 3 or 4. So you guys definitely should check her out. And thank you so much today, Becky.
Absolutely. Thanks, Demi. Thanks for having me. Thanks everybody for being here.
Oh, I have one more question. I have sometimes anxiety takes over me and I'm not breathing as I'm doing things. I don't know what it is.
Oh yeah.
Is there tips that you can share to help just breathe?
Absolutely. So I feel like that's another part of this practice that we didn't really get to touch into today. This was mostly about how yoga is going to help your bone strength, but absolutely in so many ways can help with anxiety and can help with breathing. So please reach out to me over email and maybe we can have a conversation.
Okay.
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Becky, it's Barb. Hi, Demi. I have one question. I've been taking yoga for years. As a matter of fact, I work with Steve Nacon at the Chicago Botanic Garden. You probably know of him or their program.
That's great.
And I love it. And we do everything that you show. My one personal concern for myself is the difference in weakness on my backside compared to my front side. So everything that I do, I feel really strong with until I'm in that last posture on the floor and I have to lift up in the back. It is so much more difficult for me, which means I want to work on it. But is there something else, either with Demi or in a gym, that I can do with the glutes, with the back? It is so challenging for me, not only to get into that pose, but to hold it. And I really need help with that sort of backside as opposed to everywhere else.
So that's such a great question, Barb. And it is like one of the like quintessential back strength